guys? Welcome to the Grustle Podcast, the podcast where we bring you upcoming entrepreneurs, bring you their stories, their businesses. We bring you the advice that they have for you guys, and I'm your host, the one and only Kaminsky. And then in this episode, episode 0, right? That's how we're gonna start this off. We don't have a guest, but I'm gonna talk with you guys about the importance of branding and how it pertains to entrepreneurship and the entrepreneur, right? So we'll discuss, what is branding, right? Why is it important to an entrepreneur? And we'll talk about how you can create a strong brand for your business, right? Let's talk about branding for a minute. So what is branding? So branding is basically the process of creating your identity for your business, right? It's more than a logo. It's more than your website, right? It's basically the communication of the value of your brand to your customer. You want to communicate the value to them, right? So why is it important? So branding is definitely important because it helps you stand out. Your unique brand helps you stand out from your competition, and it gives you a competitive advantage, right? It gives you a competitive advantage over everybody else, right? Because of the uniqueness, right? And it also builds trust with your customer. All right. So first and foremost, right? So let's talk about how to create a strong brand for your business. So I got a couple key items, right, for you to go. And I had to write these down to make sure I talk to you guys about it, right? So define your target audience, right? That's important. Create a unique value proposition, right? And then you want to develop a strong visual identity. You want to make sure you stand out, right? Be consistent with your message. So those are 4 things, right? So first up, right? So when it comes to creating a strong brand, you must define your target audience, right? So who are you trying to reach with your brand? What are their wants and needs? And when you figure out your target audience for your brand, then you can kind of tailor your brand to that, right? You can alter your brand however you want to do it as soon as you find your defined target audience. Going to number 2, creating your unique value proposition. So that's your UVP, right? So when you're creating this, right? So what makes you different from your competition? What value do you bring to the customer, with your brand? So your UVP, your unique value proposition, is the answer to these questions, right? What sets you apart from everybody else? That's what you want to really focus on and work off that. All right. So going into step number 3, develop a strong visual identity with your brand, right? So this is what stands out, right, with your brand, right? This is how your customer interacts with your brand. Also, it's about your logo, about your website, about your marketing, even down to, if you got employees, how your employees dress, the mood, right? The whole shebang, I would say. But this is how the customer interacts with your brand, and you want to develop a strong visual identity with that. Right. So going into the 4th one, right? Be consistent with your message, right? This can mean a ton of things, but when it gets down to the nitty gritty with your brand, you want to make sure your brand is the same down every path or down every channel that someone interacts with your brand. So for like social media, right? So every social media account, from Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, the message should be the same. You want to make sure you stay aligned with your brand and be consistent, because that's how you build your customer, your fan base. That's how you get a following. That's how you build a community. And then when you kind of like don't be consistent and it's kind of wishy-washy with the message of your brand, that's how you lose customers. So look, Greg, I know I gave you guys 4, key tips or 4 things to make your brand strong, but I also got a few more things that we can talk about just to remember to have in your back of your head while you're working on your brand, right? So you want to be authentic, right? That goes hand in hand to being unique, but you want to be authentic with your brand. You want to be rememberable. You want to be like something that someone remembers. You want to stand out, right? You want to leave your mark, so to speak, right? You want to be resilient, right, to your define target audience. You want to be resilient to their needs and wants, right? And then be consistent. Once again, not only with the message, also with the actual brand itself. Be consistent. That means a lot. And then it takes time, right? When you're building your brand, just know that it takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. You got to learn how things work. You got to research. You got to do all this good stuff, right? So just be patient. Be patient. Stick to your guns. And I promise you, you will build a strong brand if you go by these tips. So I want to give you guys some examples, right? So some examples of these 4 companies, right? So we got Apple, Nike, Coca-Cola, and Disney, right? So we're going to look at these 4 brands, and we're going to look at how they use their brand and how did they stick out, and what was their focus, right? So let's talk about Apple, right? So Apple is basically, it's all about quality, all about a simple user experience, the luxury and technology. That's all Apple really focus on, and they use that in their brand and focus on that, right? So you look at Nike, right? And that's pretty obvious, right? How Nike went about what they did, right? So they are all about performance, all about athleticism, working with athletes and stuff. And last thing that Nike is about is style, right? So they took those 3 things, they stuck with it, and that's how, they created their brand, right, for what they was doing. All right, so Starbucks, right? Starbucks, it's another good, strong brand of where they focused on, right? So Starbucks focused on the luxury, of course, their specialty in coffee, right? The community was a big thing. And then the convenience of the customer, and, all the type of special stuff they do with their coffee. That's what they focused on for their brand, right? And I don't think, last but not least, talking about Disney, I don't think it's a shocker with Disney, right? It's all about family, fun, wonders, magic, mystery, stuff like that. So they focused on that side of it, and they really took off, man. That was the thing. Like, and so like, all right, let's take Disney for example, right? I was going to take all of them, but let's take Disney. This is a perfect example, right? So what is the thing that everybody wanted to do? Go to Disney World. Even like when people win the Super Bowl, when people win the championships, we go into Disney World, right? Everybody takes their family. So that was like, it was crazy, the brand and how they did the branding behind Disney. Right? All right, right. So it can be many more brands on that, right? But we picked these brands, and I picked these brands because these brands are the ones that like stood the test of time. All of them had the same thing in common. They was resilient. You remember them, and they was always consistent, right, on what they did. So in addition to these brands, there's a lot of independent brands out there, right? You can know about your local mom and pop shops, or if you go to your town, for instance, one big one is like restaurants, right? If you got a good restaurant in your area, everybody talks about it, right? So there are many well-known independent brands that's more authentic to their target customer, right? Because they know, who to target and how they target it, right? So those independent brands, and when you're at that level, right, it's okay to be at that scale, right? You don't need to be on the big scale. It's a lot of successful brands at a smaller scale, and when you're at that scale, you can actually you can be creative and innovative at that scale, and then that's where you stand out the most. And then if you can do that and be consistent, resilient with it, you can take it to the next level, if you choose to. Some like staying at the little level, right? So another thing, if you're looking, this is something I do from time to time, if you're looking to create a strong brand, you should study other brands, any brands that you feel like is somewhat close to yours, or any brands you just admire, right? Study them, understand how things work, understand their whole strategy. Try to look more into what they're doing, how they're being resilient, how they're being consistent. Like, really study what they're doing. You understand, how a brand goes by doing that, by others, by looking at other brands, how they go by doing that. You can start your own brand and be even more successful. I want to touch on something that I think is very important when it comes to branding. So there are different types of branding, right? It's like 3 different types of branding. So you got company branding, you got the product branding, and then you got the personal brand. So, and basically the name says it all, right? So company branding is the brand for the company. Product branding is basically the product. It's focused on the product that you have. And then personal branding is yourself. And so for me though, out of all three of those, personal branding, it should be your main focus, and it should be involved in somewhat all of those, right? So I know there's branding for your product. If you got a product you're trying to sell, or there's a brand for your company, just a group of you guys, and you guys got something going on for your company. But with both of those, right, with the company and the product branding, personal branding plays a part. Personal branding is always there, and I think personal branding is probably the biggest of them all, because when you look at guys, when they look at customers, or you look at everybody, when they have a certain type of phone, or if they got a certain type of computer, or they wearing certain type of clothes, 9 times out of 10 it's because of the person that's behind it, or whoever is behind it, the person or the group of people, what they stand for. So that's actually like the personal brand, right? So personal brand, I think, trumps the other two, but those are just some different types of brands, right? Before I leave you guys, I'm going to leave you with some resources, right? I want to give you some points where you can kind of go out here and do some more research and look into this branding thing, right? So for the first resource I got for you guys is The Brand Gap, right? This book is by Marty. Don't want to mess up his last name, so I'll put, or the person's last name, so I'll put the link in the description. So I'll put the link in the description for all this stuff, right? So there's a book called The Brand Gap. Check that out from Marty. And then we have probably one of the bigger ones that everybody most likely already use or go to is Branding for Dummies, and that's with Alan Gardner. I'm sorry, messing up your things, but Branding for Dummies. That's another good book. Then there's actually a blog, so the Personal Branding blog. You should check that out. I'll put a link in the description for that. But also, if you guys haven't already, Entrepreneur Mindset by yours truly. The book is a really good insight on how to get yourself ready for the challenges coming ahead with branding. So I do recommend Entrepreneur Mindset. And then also, last but not least, something that I put a lot of work into, Build Your Brand Academy. So if you guys go to my website at Kaminsky.com, you have to make an account. It's just real simple. Make a account, and then you're able to sign up for Build Your Brand Academy. Right now it's 2 courses, probably be more down the line, but as of this video, or as of me recording this, it's two courses, which is the startup course. So you do everything before you actually get into making your brand, and then the actual Build Your Brand Academy. It's for free. It helps you guys start it from scratch. So it helps you, it starts you off with the foundation, right? It helps you start it, create it, launch it, and then build on it, right? So those are 3 big ones that I capitalize on. Well, it's actually 4 topics that I capitalize on in the course, and the course is free. You just go check it out. It's free. All you have is your time, right? And basically it helps you out. Instead of you searching all over the place and trying to figure out what you need to do, I put everything in one place for you guys, right? Well, all right, guys, there you have it. Thank you so much for stopping by this episode of the importance of branding. We talk about what branding was. We talk about how it coincides with the entrepreneur. We talk about how you can get into building a strong brand. One thing I do want to tell you guys is to focus on your value of the brand and what you have. For all you entrepreneurs out there, when you look at your brand, focus on your value and your target audience. And once again, go to Build a Brand Academy. You can check out all the good stuff I have. Once again, I just want to thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks for listening. And I'll catch you guys next time. I cannot wait to get these entrepreneurs and these wonderful people in front of you guys. Catch you later.